The 13th Book of the Odysseys of Homer. The Argument. Ulysses, shipped but in the even, with all the presents he was given, and sleeping then, is set next morn in full scope of his wished return, and treads unknown his country shore, whose search so many winters wore. The ship, returning and arrived against the city, is deprived of form, and all her motion gone, transformed by Neptune to a stone. Ulysses, let to know the strand where the Phaeacians made him land, consults with Pallas for the life of every wooer of his wife. His gifts she hides within a cave, and him into a man more grave, all hid in wrinkles, crooked, grey, transformed, who so goes on his way. Another argument. New. Phaeacia Ulysses leaves, whom Ithaca unwares receives. He said, and silence all their tongues contained, in admiration, when with pleasure chained their ears had long been to him. At last brake Alcinous silence, and in this sort spake to the Ithacensian, Laertes' son: O Ithacus, however overrun with former sufferings in your way for home, since 'twas at last your happy fate to come to my high-roofed and brass-foundationed house, I hope such speed and pass auspicious our loves shall yield you, that you shall no more wander, nor suffer homewards as before. You then, whoever that are ever graced with all the choice of authorized power to taste such wine with me as warms the sacred rage, and is an honorary given to age, with which ye likewise here divinely sing, in honour's praise, the poet of the king, I move, by way of my command, to this, that where in an elaborate chest there lies a present for our guest, attires of price, and gold engraven with infinite device, I wish that each of us should add beside a tripod, and a caldron amplified with size, and metal of most rate and great, for we, in council of taxation met, will from our subjects gain their worth again, since 'tis unequal one man should sustain a charge so weighty, being the grace of all, which borne by many is a weight but small. Thus spake Alcinous, and pleased the rest, when each man closed with home and sleep his feast. But when the colour-giving light arose, all to the ship did all their speeds dispose, and wealth that honest men makes brought with them. All which even he that wore the diadem stowed in the ship himself, beneath the seats the rower sat in, stooping, lest their lets in any of their labours he might prove. Then home he turned, and after him did move the whole assembly to expected feast. Among whom he a sacrifice addressed, and slew an ox to weather‐wielding Jove, beneath whose empire all things are and move. The thighs then roasting, they made glorious cheer delighted highly, and amongst them there, the honour'd of the people used his voice, divine Demodocus. Yet through this choice of cheer and music had Ulysses still an eye directed to the eastern hill, to see him rising that illustrates all, for now into his mind a fire did fall of thirst for home, and as in hungry vow to needful food a man at fixed plough, to whom the black ox all day long hath turned the stubborn fallows up, his stomach burned with empty heat and appetite to food, his knees afflicted with his spirit-spent blood, at length the long-expected sunset sees, that he may sit to food and rest his knees. So to Ulysses set the friendly light the sun afforded, with as wish'd a sight, who straight he spake the o'er-affecting state, but did in chief his speech appropriate to him by name, that with their rule was crowned. Alcinous, of all men most renowned, dismiss me with as safe pass as you vow, your offering past, and may the gods to you in all contentment use as full a hand. For now my landing here and stay shall stand in all perfection with my heart's desire, both my so safe deduction to aspire and loving gifts, which may the gods to me as blest in use make as your acts are free, even to the finding firm in love and life, with all desired event, my friends and wife. When as myself shall live delighted there, may you with your wives rest as happy here, your sons and daughters in particular state, with every virtue rendered consummate. And in your general empire may ill never approach your land, but good your good quit ever. This all applauded, and all jointly cried, Dismiss the stranger, he hath dignified with fit speech his dismission. Then the king thus charged the herald, Fill for offering a bowl of wine, which through the whole large house dispose to all men, that, propitious, our Father Jove made with our prayers, we may give home our guest in full and wished way. This said, Pontonous commixed a bowl Of such sweet wine as did delight the soul. Which making sacred to the blessed Gods That hold in broad heaven their supreme abodes, Godlike Ulysses from his chair arose, And in the hands of the Empress did impose The all round cup; to whom, fair spoke, he said, Rejoice, O Queen, and be your joys repaid By heaven for me, till age and death succeed, Both which inflict their most unwelcome need On men and dames alike. And first, for me, I must from thence to both. Live you here free, and ever may all living blessings spring, Your joy in children, subjects, and your king. This said, divine Ulysses took his way, Before whom the unalterable sway Of King Alcinous' virtue did command A herald's fit attendance to the strand And ship appointed. With him likewise went handmaids, by Aretes' injunction sent. One bore an out'n'in weed, fair and sweet; The other an embroider'd cabinet; The third had bread to bear, and ruddy wine; All which, at sea and ship arrived, resign'd Their freight conferr'd. With fair attendance then, the sheets and bedding Of the man of men, within a cabin Of the hollow keel, spread and made soft, That sleep might sweetly seal his restful eyes. He enter'd, and his bed in silence took. The rowers ordered themselves in several seats, And then set gone the ship. The gable from the hollow stone dissolved, And weighed up all together; close then beat the sea. His lids in sweet repose sleep bound so fast, It scarce gave way to breath inexcitable, Most dear, next of all to death. And as amids a fair field 4 brave horse Before a chariot stung into their course With fervent lashes of the smarting scourge, That all their fire blows high, and makes them urge To utmost speed the measure of their ground, So bore the ship aloft her fiery bound. About whom rush'd the billows black and vast, In which the sea roars burst. As firm as fast She plied her course yet, nor her winged speed The falcon gentle could for pace exceed. So cut she through the waves, and bore a man Even with the Gods in councils, that began And spent his former life in all misease, Battles of men, and rude waves of the seas, Yet now securely slept, forgetting all. And when heav'n's brightest star, that first doth call The early morning out, advanc'd her head, Then near to Ithaca the billow bred Phræcian ship approach'd. There is a port That the aged sea God Phorcys makes his fort, Whose earth the Ithacensian people own; In which 2 rocks inaccessible are grown Far forth into the sea, whose each strength binds The boisterous waves in from the high flown winds On both the out parts; so, that all within The well built ships, that once their harbour win In his calm bosom, without anchor rest, Safe and unstirr'd. From forth the haven's high crest Branch the well brawn'd arms of an olive tree, Beneath which runs a cave from all sun free, Cool and delightsome, sacred to the access Of nymphs, whose surnames are the Naiades; In which flew humming bees; in which lay thrown Stone cups, stone vessels, shittles all of stone, With which the nymphs their purple mantles wove; In whose contexture art and wonder strove; In which pure springs perpetually ran; To which 2 entries were, one for man, On which the North breath'd; the other for the Gods, On which the South; and that bore no abodes For earthly men, but only deathless feet Had there free way. This port these men thought meet To land Ulysses, being the first they knew; Drew then their ship in, but no further drew Than half her bulk reach'd, by such cunning hand Her course was manag'd. Then her men took land, and first brought forth Ulysses, bed and all that richly furnish'd it. He's still in thrall of all subduing sleep. Upon the sand they set him softly down, and then the strand they strew with all the goods he had, bestowed by the renowned Phæacians, since he showed so much Minerva. At the olive root they drew them then in heap, most far from foot of any traveller, lest, ere his eyes resumed their charge, they might be others' prize. These then turned home, nor was the sea's Supreme forgetful of his threats, for Polypheme bent at divine Ulysses, yet would prove, ere their performance, the decree of Jove. Father, no more the Gods shall honour me, since men despise me, and those men that see the light in lineage of mine own loved race. I vowed Ulysses should, before the grace of his return, encounter's woes enow to make that purchase dear, yet did not vow simply against it, since thy brow had bent to his reduction, in the fore‐consent thou hast vouchsafed it. Yet, before my mind hath full power on him, the Phæacians find their own minds satisfaction with his pass, so far from suffering what my pleasure was, that ease and softness now is habited in his secure breast, and his careless head returned in peace of sleep to Ithaca, the brass and gold of rich Phæacia rocking his temples, garments richly woven and worlds of prize, more than was ever stroven from all the conflicts he sustained at Troy, if safe he should his full share there enjoy. The showered dissolver answered, What a speech hath passed thy palate, O thou great in reach of wrackful empire! Far the Gods remain from scorn of thee, for 'twere a work of pain to prosecute with ignominies one that sways our ablest and most ancient throne. For men, if any so beneath in power neglect thy high will, now, or any hour that moves hereafter, take revenge to thee, soothe all thy will, and be thy pleasure free. Why then, said he, thou blacker of the fumes that dim the sun, my licensed power resumes act from thy speech. But I observe so much, and fear thy pleasure, that I dare not touch at any inclination of mine own, till thy consenting influence be known. But now this curious built Phæacian ship returning from her convoy, I will strip of all her fleeting matter, and to stone transform and fix it, just when she hath gone her full time home, and jets before their prease in all her trim, amidst the sable seas, that they may cease to convoy strangers still, when they shall see so like a mighty hill their glory stick before their city's grace, and my hands cast a mask before her face. O friend, said Jove, it shows to me the best of all earth's objects, that their whole prease, dressed in all their wonder, near their town shall stand, and stare upon a stone, so near the land so like a ship, and dam up all their lights, as if a mountain interposed their sights. When Neptune heard this, he for Scheria went, whence the Phæacians took their first descent, which when he reach'd, and in her swiftest pride, the water‐treader by the city's side came cutting close. Close he came swiftly on, took her in violent hand, and to a stone turned all her sylvan substance. All below firm'd her with roots, and left her. This strange show when the Phæacians saw, they stupid stood, and ask'd each other, who amidst the flood could fix their ship so in her full speed home, and quite transparent make her bulk become. Thus talked they, but were far from knowing how these things had issue, which their king did show, and said, O friends, the ancient prophecies my father told to me, to all our eyes are now in proof. He said the time would come, when Neptune, for our safe conducting home all sorts of strangers, out of envy fir'd, would meet our fairest ship as she retir'd, and all the goodly shape and speed we boast should like a mountain stand before us lost amidst the moving waters, which we see perform'd in full end to our prophecy. Hear then my counsel, and obey me then. Renounce henceforth our convoy home of men, who shall hereafter greet our town, and to th' offended Deities' renown 12 chosen oxen let us sacred make, that he may pity us, and from us take this shady mountain. They in fear obey'd, slew all the beeves, and to the Godhead pray'd. the dukes and princes all enspheering round the sacred altar, while whose tops were crowned. Divine Ulysses on his country's breast lay bound in sleep, now rose out of his rest, nor, being so long remov'd, the region knew. Besides which absence yet, Minerva threw a cloud about him, to make strange the more his safe arrival, lest upon his shore he should make known his face, and utter all that might prevent the event that was to fall. Which she prepar'd so well, that not his wife, presented to him, should perceive his life, no citizen, no friend, till righteous fate upon the wooer's wrongs were consummate. Through which cloud all things show'd now to the king of foreign fashion, the enflow'red spring amongst the trees there, the perpetual waves, the rocks, that did more high their foreheads raise to his rapt eye than naturally they did, and all the haven, in which a man seem'd hid from wind and weather, when storms loudest chid. He therefore, being risen, stood and view'd his country earth, which, not perceiv'd, he rued, and striking with his hurled down hands his thighs, he mourn'd and said: "O me, again where lies my desert way, to wrongful men and rude, and with no laws of human right endued? Or are they human, and of holy minds? What fits my deed with these so many kinds of goods late given? What with myself will floods and errors do? I would to God these goods had rested with their owners, and that I had fall'n on kings of more regality, to grace out my return, that lov'd indeed, and would have given me consorts of fit speed to my distresses' ending. But, as now all knowledge flies me where I may bestow my labour'd purchase, here they shall not stay, lest what I car'd for others make their prey. O Gods, I see the great Phæacians then were not all just and understanding men, that land me elsewhere than their vaunts pretended, assuring me my country should see ended my miseries told them, yet now eat their vaunts. O Jove, great guardian of poor suppliants, that others sees and notes too, shutting in all in thy plagues that most presume on sin, revenge me on them. Let me know now the goods they gave, to give my mind to know if they have stol'n none in their close retreat." The goodly caldrons then, and tripods, set in several ranks from out the heap, he told; his rich wrought garments too, and all his gold, and nothing lack'd. And yet this man did mourn the but supposed miss of his home return. And creeping to the shore with much complaint, Minerva, like a shepherd, young and quaint as kings' sons are, a double mantle cast athwart his shoulders, his fair goers graced with fitted shoes, and in his hands a dart, appear'd to him, whose sight rejoiced his heart, to whom he came and said: "O friend, since first I met your sight here, be all good the worst that can join our encounter. Fare you fair, nor with adverse mind welcome my repair, but guard these goods of mine, and succour me. As to a God I offer prayers to thee, and low access make to thy loved knee. Say truth, that I may know. What country then? What common people live here, and what men? Some famous isle is this? Or gives it vent, being near the sea, to some rich continent?" She answer'd: "Stranger, whatsoe'er you are either foolish, or come passing far, that know not this isle, and make that doubt trouble, for 'tis not so exceedingly ignoble but passing many know it, and so many that of all the nation there abides not any, from where the morning rises and the sun, to where the even and the night their courses run, but know this country. Rocky 'tis and rough, and so for use of horse unapt enough, yet with sad barrenness not much infested, since clouds are here in frequent rains digested, and flow'ry dews. The compass is not great, the little yet well fill'd with wine and wheat. It feeds a goat and ox well, being still water'd with floods, that ever overfill with heav'n's continual showers, and wooded so it makes a spring of all the kinds that grow. And therefore, stranger, the extended name of this dominion makes access by fame from this extreme part of Achaia, as far as Ilion, and 'tis Ithaca." This joy'd him much, that so unknown a land turn'd to his country. Yet so wise a hand he carried, even of this joy, flown so high, That other end he put to his reply, than straight to show that joy, and lay abroad his life to strangers. Therefore he bestow'd a veil on truth, for evermore did wind about his bosom a most crafty mind, which thus his words show'd: "I have far at sea in spacious Crete heard speak of Ithaca, of which myself, it seems, now reach the shore, with these my fortunes, whose whole value more I left in Crete amongst my children there, from whence I fly for being the slaughterer of royal Idomen's most lovéd son, Swift foot Orsilochus, that could outrun profess'd men for the race. Yet him I slew, because he would deprive me of my due in Trojan prize, for which I suffer'd so, the rude waves piercing, the redoubled woe of mind and body in the wars of men. Nor did I gratify his father then with any service, but as well as he sway'd in command other soldiery, so with a friend withdrawn we waylaid him, when gloomy night the cope of heav'n did dim, and no man knew; but we lodg'd close, he came, and I put out to him his vital flame. Whose slaughter having author'd with my sword, I instant flight made, and straight fell aboard a ship of the renown'd Phœnician state, when pray'd, and paid at a sufficient rate, obtain'd my pass of men in her command, whom I enjoin'd to set me on the land of Pylos, or of Elis the divine, where the Epeans in great empire shine. But force of weather check'd that course to them, though loth to fail me to their most extreme they spent their willing powers. But forc'd from thence, we err'd, and put in here, with much expense of care and labour, and in dead of night, when no man there served any appetite so much as with the memory of food, though our estates exceeding needy stood. But going ashore, we lay, when gentle sleep my weary powers invaded, and from ship they fetching these my riches, with just hand about me laid them, while upon the sand sleep bound my senses. And for Sidon they, put off from hence, made sail, while here I lay, left sad alone. The Goddess laugh'd, and took his hand in hers, and with another look, assuming the likeness of a dame, lovely and goodly, expert in the frame of virtuous housewif'ries, she answer'd thus: "He should be passing sly and covetous of stealth in men's deceits, that coteth thee in any craft, though any God should be ambitious to exceed in subtlety. Thou still wit varying wretch, insatiate in overreaches, not secure thy state without these wiles, though on thy native shore thou settest safe footing, but upon thy store of false words still spend, that even from thy birth have been thy best friends? Come, our either worth is known to either. Thou of men art far, for words and counsels the most singular, but I above the Gods in both may boast my still tried faculties. Yet thou hast lost the knowledge ev'n of me, the seed of Jove, Pallas Athenia, that have still outstrove in all thy labours their extremes, and stood thy sure guard ever, making all thy good known to the good Phæacians, and receiv'd. And now again I greet thee, to see weav'd fresh counsels for thee, and will take on me the close reserving of these goods for thee, which the renown'd Phæacian states bestow'd at thy deduction homewards, only mov'd with my both spirit and counsel. All which grace I now will amplify, and tell what case thy household stands in, uttering all those pains that of mere need yet still must rack thy veins. Do thou then freely bear, nor one word give to man nor dame to show thou yet dost live, but silent suffer over all again thy sorrows past, and bear the wrongs of men." "Goddess," said he, "unjust men and unwise, that author injuries and vanities, by vanities and wrongs should rather be bound to this ill a-bearing destiny, than just and wise men. What delight hath heav'n that lives unhurt itself, to suffer giv'n up to all domage those poor few that strive to imitate it, and like the Deities live? But where you wonder that I know you not through all your changes, that skill is not got by sleight or art, since thy most hard hit face is still distinguish'd by thy free giv'n grace. And therefore to truly acknowledge thee in thy encounters is a mastery in men most knowing, for to all men thou tak'st several likeness. All men think they know thee in their wits, but, since thy seeming view appears to all, and yet thy truth to few, Through all thy changes to discern thee right asks chief love to thee, and inspiréd light. But this I surely know, that, some years past, I have been often with thy presence grac'd, all time the sons of Greece wag'd war at Troy, but when Fate's full hour let our swords enjoy our vows in sack of Priam's lofty town, our ships all boarded, and when God had blown our fleet in sunder, I could never see the seed of Jove, nor once distinguish thee boarding my ship, to take one woe from me, but only in my proper spirit involved, err'd here and there, quite slain, till heav'n dissolved me in my ill, which chanced not, till thy grace by open speech confirm'd me, in a place fruitful of people, where, in person, thou didst give me guide, and all their city show, and that was the renown'd Phæacian earth. Now then, even by the author of thy birth, Vouchsafe my doubt the truth, for far it flies my thoughts, that thus should fall into mine eyes conspicuous Ithaca, but fear I touch at some far shore. In that thy wit is such thou dost delude me, is it sure the same Most honour'd earth that bears my country's name? I see, said she, thou wilt be ever thus in every worldly good incredulous, and therefore have no more the power to see frail life more plagued with infelicity in one so eloquent, ingenious, wise. Another man, that so long miseries had kept from his loved home, and thus returned to see his house, wife, children, would have burned in headlong lust to visit. Yet to enquire what states they hold affects not thy desire, till thou hast tried, if in thy wife there be a sorrow wasting days and nights for thee in loving tears, that then the sight may prove a full reward for either's mutual love. But I would never credit in you both least cause of sorrow, but well knew the troth of this thine own return, though all thy friends I knew as well should make returnless ends. Yet would not cross mine uncle Neptune so to stand their safeguard, since so high did go his wrath for thy extinction of the eye of his loved son. Come then, I'll show thee why I call this isle thy Ithaca, to ground thy credit on my words. This haven is own'd by the aged sea god Phorcys, in whose brow this is the olive with the ample bough, and here, close by, the pleasant shaded cave that to the fount nymphs the Ithacensians gave, as sacred to their pleasures. Here doth run the large and cover'd den, where thou hast done hundreds of off'rings to the Naiades. Here Mount Neritus shakes his curled tress of shady woods. This said, she clear'd the cloud that first deceived his eyes, and all things show'd his country to him. Glad he stood with the sight of his loved soil, and kiss'd it with delight, and instantly to all the nymphs he paid, with hands held up to heav'n, these vows, and said: Ye nymphs, the Naiades, great seed of Jove, I had conceit that never more should move Your sight in these spheres of my erring eyes, and therefore, in the fuller sacrifice Of my heart's gratitude, rejoice, till more I pay your names in off'rings as before. Which here I vow, if Jove's benign descent, The mighty pillager, with life convent My person home, and to my saved decease Of my lov'd son's sight add the sweet increase. Be confident, said Pallas, nor oppress thy spirits with care of these performances, but these thy fortunes let us straight repose in this divine cave's bosom, that may close reserve their value, and we then may see how best to order other acts to thee. Thus enter'd she the light excluding cave, and through it sought some inmost nook to save the gold, the great brass, and robes richly wrought, given to Ulysses. All which in he brought, laid down in heap, and she imposed a stone close to the cavern's mouth. Then sat they on the sacred olive's root, consulting how to act the insulting Wooer's overthrow. When Pallas said: Examine now the means that best may lay hands on the impudence of those proud Wooers, that have now 3 years thy roof's rule sway'd, and been bold offerers of suit and gifts to thy renownéd wife, who for thy absence all her desolate life dissolves in tears till thy desir'd return. Yet all her Wooers, while she thus doth mourn, she holds in hope, and every one affords, in foresent message, promise, but her words bear other utt'rance than her heart approves. "O Gods," said Ithacus, "it now behooves my fate to end me in the ill decease that Agamemnon underwent, unless you tell me, and in time, their close intents. Advise, then, means to the reveng'd events we both resolve on. Be thyself so kind to stand close to me, and but such a mind breathe in my bosom, as when the Ilion tow'rs we tore in cinders. O, if equal pow'rs thou wouldst inflame amidst my nerves as then, I could encounter with 300 men, thy only self, great Goddess, had to friend in those brave ardours thou wert wont to extend." "I will be strongly with thee," answer'd she, "Nor must thou fail, but do thy part with me. When both whose pow'rs combine, I hope the bloods and brains of some of these that waste thy goods shall strew thy goodly pavements. Join we then. I first will render thee unknown to men, and on thy solid lineaments make dry thy now smooth skin, thy bright brown curls imply in hoary mattings, thy broad shoulders clothe in such a cloak as every eye shall loathe, thy bright eyes blear and wrinkle, and so change thy form at all parts, that thou shalt be strange to all the Wooers, thy young son and wife. But to thy herdsman first present thy life, that guards thy swine, and wisheth well to thee, that loves thy son and wife Penelope. Thy search shall find him set aside his herd, that are with taste delighting acorns rear'd, and drink the deep dark water of the spring, bright Arethusa, the most nourishing raiser of herds. There stay, and, taking seat aside thy herdsman, of the whole state treat of home occurrence, while I make access to fair dame breeding Sparta for redress of lov'd Telemachus, who went in quest of thy lov'd fame, and liv'd the welcome guest of Menelaus." The much knower said, "Why wouldst not thou, in whose grave breast is bred The art to order all acts, tell in this His error to him? Let those years of his Amidst the rude seas wander, and sustain The woes there raging, while unworthy men Devour his fortunes? Let not care extend Thy heart for him," said she. "Myself did send His person in thy search, to set his worth By good fame blown to such a distance forth. Nor suffers he in any least degree The grief you fear, but all variety That plenty can yield in her quietest fare In Menelaus' court doth sit and share, In whose return from home the Wooers yet Lay bloody ambush, and a ship have set To sea, to intercept his life before He touch again his birth's attempted shore. All which, my thoughts say, they shall never do, But rather, that the earth shall overgo Some one at least of these love making men, By which thy goods so much impair sustain." Thus using certain secret words to him, She touch'd him with her rod, and every limb Was hid all over with a wither'd skin, His bright eyes blear'd, his brow curls white and thin, And all things did an aged man present. Then, for his own weeds, shirt and coat all rent, Tann'd and all sootied with noisome smoke, She put him on, and over all a cloak Made of a stag's huge hide, of which was worn The hair quite off. A scrip, all patch'd and torn, Hung by a cord, oft broke and knit again, And with a staff did his old limbs sustain. Thus, having both consulted of the event, They parted both, and forth to Sparta went The grey eyed Goddess, to see all things done That appertain'd to wise Ulysses' son.